Welcome again to The Actor's Vow. This is Denise Borratrapat. And before we get into the fun of this week's episode, I want to tell you that Sunday Spotlight is coming back next week officially with a new look. And I have so many amazing interviews coming up, so many stories that you guys have shared, so many of you reaching out. And if you want to be part of Sunday Spotlight, there is a submission section in the Actors Vow website, www.theactorsvow.com, and you can submit. Or if you want to nominate someone to Sunday Spotlight, a friend of yours, a director, someone that you think would be a good candidate to be shared with the whole community, you can DM me and tell me about them, or just share their information, their social media links, and I will reach out to them. So having said that, I don't want to linger more in this because we have such an exciting episode coming up, because the guest this week is Summer Strallen. I was so excited when Summer said she wanted to come to the Actors Vow. I invited her, of course, and she said yes, and I was so over the moon. Because if you don't know about Summer, she is such an incredible musical theater West End actress. She has had 4 Olivier Award nominations, and she is such a talent in so many ways. I'm not going to say triple threat because we talk about it in the interview, and she's so much more than that. But, in this interview, we talk about so many things. We talk about her, growing up into the arts because her parents were also actors. They were in the original cast of Cats. Her sisters are also actresses, her aunt. So she was brought up with it. She actually started dancing at what I think was 18 months old. So it's crazy. She also had a moment, where she decided she might not want to do that, and she had to fall in love all over again with acting, and we talk about that in this conversation. She was Meg in Love Never Dies, which, a little fangirl moment. I love Phantom of the Opera and Love Never Dies, and we talk about that in this episode too. And we talk about so many more things she, of all the things Summer has done and that I could tell you about her, the thing that I think is more important to know is that talking to her, it struck me the most that she's such a humble, down-to-earth person. And what is more important that I loved finding out about her is that she's someone who really knows herself and is very, very aware. And that's one of the most important characteristics any actor can have. So I want you to experience it for yourself. So I don't think she needs further introduction. Let's welcome Summer Strallen to the Actors Vow. Welcome, Summer, to the Actors Vow. It's such an honor to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So the first question I want to ask you is the one I ask everybody, and that's what made you want to be an actor?
Well, it's quite a difficult question for me because I was sort of completely 100% pushed into it.
Okay.
So it was kind of less of a choice for me, and it became a choice for me very sort of much later on in my life. I mean, I'm 35 now, and I really decided that I enjoyed doing it and that I loved it through a weird kind of process of elimination of not doing it. So like I took myself away from the business for a while, a couple of times, just through different experiences that I had. And I'm a very spiritual being. I'm very aware of my emotions. I'm very I've also had a sort of a bit of a spiritual awakening in like 2010. So that's when I really started to ask myself the questions of why I was doing it and what made me happy. So I think as a sort of the short answer is probably about a week ago. I really decided that I actually really want to do it. No, it wasn't a week ago. It was about a month ago.
Wow.
But
Okay.
I've always done it, and I think it's more, the determination that I've had throughout my life and throughout my career is due to me and my determination. It's got nothing to do with the actual job.
Okay.
Because the job is can be so hard.
Yeah.
It can also be so brilliant and so exciting and fun and incredible. So it's sort of this, it's the determination for me is in my heart of like being. I'm determined to be happy in every moment, and that is also then can be that can also then be sort of transferred onto your acting as well.
Yeah.
That you're in every single moment in whatever that character is feeling.
Yeah.
You can take how you are in your life of being aware of, not being aware of yourself, because when you're aware of yourself when you're acting, it looks like you're not. It looks like you're acting rather than actually just being the person. Okay. It's a complicated answer.
Okay. So I read in an interview, because you've been nominated 4 times to the Olivier Awards, which is amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah.
But I read in an interview that you mentioned that at that time you didn't enjoy it. So is this part of what you're explaining?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. Even though I had, as I say, this sort of spiritual awakening. I mean, I've had 2 nominations by the time the sort of awakening happened, and yeah, I just didn't enjoy it at the time. I didn't let myself enjoy it because I always felt that I didn't quite deserve it.
Okay.
And that's where I what I battle with, and what I think a lot of actors battle with, is sort of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And when the thing that you have to do, I feel, because I didn't really train. I trained with my family and with my parents who were actors, but I didn't go to acting school for 3 years where I was just acting, or I was just singing, or I was just dancing. I went to a college for like a year where I did musical theatre across the board, triple threat. So I never really honed my skill on one thing.
Okay.
And for a long time, I thought that held me back because I hadn't fully, focused on one thing. But ultimately, now I'm realizing more and more that actually when I put my mind to that one thing, so if I'm just acting, and I do that, and I put everything into it, and then if I'm dancing, I put everything into that, and and then luckily with the musical theatre thing, you can go across the board. Yeah. The problem with my brain, not the problem, but the challenge that I have, is that I want to do everything perfectly.
Yeah.
And that is the worst thing for any actor, is to have perfection syndrome, perfectionist syndrome. So if I could give any advice to anyone, it would be stop trying to be perfect, because nothing is. The beauty is in the strange and the growth, and that there's nothing interesting in perfection. It is what it is. Whereas when you're a little bit complex and there's things that are kind of, it makes it more interesting if it's not perfect.
Yeah, that's great advice. And it's so refreshing to hear you say what you said, because many times we have the imposter syndrome, right? What you said, and we think that, you know, being nominated to an Olivier, a Tony, whatever it is that we want will give us that validation. And it's not true. It's that validation has to come from the inside.
Yeah. And it's very, it's so hard. Yeah. I'm going to say it now. It's so hard. And it doesn't have to be, you know, in all of the spiritual teachings, you know, that I've read and or studied. I mean, again, I'm a Sagittarius. I talk about this a lot. I lose interest very quickly in a lot of things. You know, I'm very like all guns blazing about things, which is why I'm probably good at TV, because it's just like, you do it, you get on set, you do it, and you go, and that's it, finished, done. And then you get to do another something that's fantastic the next day, you know. So that kind of works for me. But when you're having to do things over and over again, that's when I'm like, okay, I'm out, I'm done. I've done it once, you know. So that for me is the imposter syndrome is kind of a thing that comes from not feeling like I can ever focus. Although I meditate and I do yoga, and I've trained in yoga, and I've got my certification, and I can put my mind to something. We all can put our minds to something. But I think it's more about being in the moment. I've lost my train of thought. I've gone off on a tangent. I don't remember what the question was.
No. That's all right. It's helpful. Yeah.
But it is that. It's kind of, you know, constantly coming back to that moment is very, very important. And that's also, you know, so I kind of, you know, asked, we started talking and about the Strallen Collective, and this is what I've set up so that I can help people learn how to meditate and do yoga at the same time as having amazing classes with people who are professionals in the industry, who are, you know, working professionals in the industry, or people who have been working for many years and they're now having a break, you know. And frankly, we're all having a break right now, which personally I feel that we all needed, because I always feel like I need a break from it, because when I'm doing it, I'm so 100% involved. I live and breathe whatever job I'm doing.
It's a lot.
And it is, but at the same time, I stand by that. You know, I don't agree, but it's about the intensity, isn't it? Of whatever you're doing and what you put into it. You have to learn, what I've had to learn is developing a protective shield that gives me a little bit of safety and protection. Me, Summer, this being, this vessel. So I have rituals, and in the morning I have a morning routine that helps me get into that space, so that I feel that I don't give too much of my soul to whatever it is that I'm doing, to the detriment of myself. I only want to give the amount that I'm willing to give. Is when you give too much is when you start resenting what you're doing. And that's what was happening with me, was that I didn't know how to protect myself, and other people they just learn how to do that. And I think you maybe learn how to do that in training as well, which, as I say, I hadn't had. I hadn't had that training of finding out who Summer was. So, you know, whoever that is, I talk about her like she's in the third person, because she is a lot of the time, because I'm very like Jim Carrey on the whole thing. I'm just like, who is this person? You know, like, I could be that for some people in certain times, but, you know, but then as an actor, you're asked to be somebody else. So you have to you can delve deep into that person. That's what's so exciting about it, and that's what's so addictive about it. Is that you can go, bye Summer, you've just done whatever, you know, you might have, I don't know, driven into a post box and knocked it over, and you're like, oops, you know, and you can just go, okay, bye bye, I didn't do it, person, this is who I am now, you know,
Yeah.
which is amazing. But at the same time, it can be very confusing if you don't keep a little bit part of yourself somewhere that you can then go and get back out again when you're ready, when you're not doing that job.
So was there a specific moment that you started the spiritual journey, something that happened, or how was it the beginning for you?
Yeah, so my older sister Scarlett is in theatre as well, and so she started a sort of spiritual awakening much earlier than me. She's 2.5 years older than me. And I used to be very atheist, very like straight down the line. This is that, you know, you live, you die, you're dead, gone, finished, you know. And which is also another reason why I didn't allow myself to feel the excitement and the exhilaration that you can feel being an actor. I was, you know, I feel like even watching my performances from way back when, I feel there's a block between me and what I'm giving. And that was because I was so in myself and thinking fear thoughts of, you know, this is going to be the last thing that I do. This is going to be terrible. It would only be very small glimpses of me being free. And so, excuse me. So it was when, so in answer to your question, it was when I was doing that Love Never Dies. And Sierra Vargas gave me a book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And she had sort of, you know, started on her journey. Yeah. And also I think because of that show, it was Andrew Lloyd Webber, who, you know, I had done Sound of Music for, and my parents had worked for many, many years. My father did, well, my mother and father did Cats, and then my father did Aspects of Love and Sunset Boulevard, and, you know, he was like well in with Andrew. So Andrew's been like a part of our lives for a very, you know, the Strallen family's lives for a long time. And this, I felt like Love Never Dies was filled with so much love from him. And then with Sierra and Ramin and Joe, and we all just had, it was all a sort of big love-in at the beginning, you know. We were all just in love with the story and in love with the score and with Jack and Jerry, and it was all going so swimmingly. And so with the Eckhart Tolle, with The Power of Now, I was very much in that space. I was very much in that space of love and oneness, and with all of these castmates. And it, and I read it in 3 days. And some, you know, now subsequently after I've been I've recommended it to people. Yeah. And they try to read it and they can't. And I find it really weird because I'm like, I read it in 3 days. It was like, oh my God, yes. I couldn't get enough of it. Yeah. But it definitely is a book that you have to be in the right space for, in order to digest it. Because Eckhart is he's a monk, basically. You know, he's not a monk, but he's a spiritual speaker who talks of this, you know, this incredible awakening that he had, where he just was like, if I'm me, who am I talking to? You know, he always says about, he thought to himself, I can't live with myself. He was like, well, who's the myself? And so it's all about who you are and who I am and who you think you are, which comes back to, you know, the acting thing of going, well, who do you want to be in this moment? Be who you want to be, not who other people want you to be. And I had been, for a very, very long time, a person that everybody wanted me to be rather than who I was in that moment. But I'm also very much like, flaky, you know, I'll be like, you know, I'll be a biker one day and I'll be a monk the next, and I'll be a, you know, stripper one day, you know, I don't care. You know, it's about experiencing life, you know, and in this life. There is so much to experience.
Right.
So I don't like to label myself or pigeonhole myself. So when people do sort of say, "Oh, you're a triple threat," I'm like, well, I'm also a person. I'm also a biker. I'm also a yogi. Because it helps them. That's what I learned as well. Is that when people want to label you, it helps them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So rather than you, so it's not about you like everything else. It's never about you. So I'm preaching to the choir here. Like, I'm telling myself this as I'm telling you,
Yeah.
Some days I'm like, I also learned that some days you're just not in that space, and that's okay. And especially being a woman as well, our hormones change so dramatically.
Absolutely.
Throughout our cycles. And I'm very much into learning about, especially for women, their cycles and where you are, because for me it's a big deal. It changes my brain chemistry very dramatically. So I have to be on top of that. And I don't think we're taught, in schools. We're not educated enough, and boys aren't educated enough in it either. Because actually, to be like, "Oh, you're on your period," is not okay.
No,
it's not okay to say that, because it's period shaming. So that's new, and it's coming out, and it's getting there, and we're growing. And this pandemic has hit us.
Oh my God, I just love hearing you talk about that. I had my spiritual awakening like 2 years ago when I finished college. I moved to LA, and I found myself, like you were talking, like I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know who I was. And I picked up a book, and I started discovering all that. And what you're saying, like I've been in sync, with the moon cycle and all those things, and so many people think.
Which book was it for you?
What is it?
Which book was it for you?
It was a Tantra book by one of the people I follow now. Yeah, it's called Break the Norms.
Right. Wow.
And
fantastic.
Yeah. And then from there, I started yoga and meditation, but that has helped my acting so much. And again, like you, I hadn't realized, that I had this wall. It's like, well, I've been acting this whole time and I didn't know myself. So how was I able to know other characters too? So yeah, absolutely. I love hearing you talk about that. And there's not that many actors that do that. That's why when I saw that you started the Strallen Collective, I was like, whoa, this is amazing. She's mixing both things. So yeah.
Really trying to, because I think it's so important for the growth of actors in everything, and I also don't feel that there is, that it's fair for there to be a divide from musical theatre acting to straight acting. It is a different skill. But it still has the same fundamental thing that is storytelling. And it's harder to storytell when you're singing a song, because you're doing a dual thing, which is with your body. You're literally working with both sides of the brain, because you're working with the technical side for your breath and for that technique, and you're also working with the creative side of your brain. So it's a skill that is underrated as far as I'm concerned. Absolutely. And then if you're then doing dancing on top of that, it's like a whole motor neuron, like amazing, fantastic thing. I mean, I wish I could get involved with a study of a scientific study of singing and get people putting things on my head and tracking how we what happens in our body when we're dancing, singing and acting. I mean, that would be a fantastic.
I wonder why no one has done that.
I'm sure they must have done, but it's not widely known, in the industry. So I'm putting it out there now, guys. Anyone who wants to do any studies on me, any experiments, all within reason, of course. But yeah.
Okay, so you're also very involved with equity, like were part or you are part of it. Like when did that happen and why did you get so involved?
Um, so it's equity in the UK really, because I've only been in the US since last November.
Oh, okay.
But I am part of Actors Equity here as well, and I haven't done enough TV jobs yet. Well, I am eligible to SAG, but I can't pay for it right now, so there's no point.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had a hiatus after Top Hat because Top Hat was again a hard experience. Just because, as I say, a lot of these experiences for me were hard for me personally. Like I made them more difficult than they could have been because of the perfectionism, and but there was also other stuff that added to it, contributed to it. So after Top Hat, I took about 3 years off, and then I was asked by Rob Ashford to be in a new adaptation of Damsel in Distress, which was the old Fred Astaire film. And it was at Chichester Festival Theatre, and I came back to that so fresh and so like ready again to give what I wanted to give. And the cast was so wonderful. It was Richard Fleischman and Sally Ann Triplett and amazing people. And we had a great time. However, when we were rehearsing, there was this thing where there was an audition period happening for Matilda. And a lot of the ensemble members had to get up at 6 a.m., go down to London, or go up to London to do an audition and then come back. And then they weren't there for the rehearsals in the morning. And it just sparked in me an annoyance, really, that we were doing this creative process, and these people had to be, sort of, when they were exhausted because they were having to go back to these dance calls and things that they'd already done 5 auditions for. And then and it was just the sort of the disparity in power that I felt so strongly about, that, had that been me as a lead, they probably would have been like, I would have been like, oh, I can't come down because I'm rehearsing for this show. And I don't know, it's just that sort of the value of people that I felt was, because I now see myself, I didn't many, many years ago, but I see everyone as equal. And I see that everyone in a creative process has their place and has their part to play, however small. And so I just felt that I wanted to make people more aware of their value. And it's hard to make actors understand how valuable they are, because we have been for so many years made to feel like we are replaceable.
Yes.
And so it's an ongoing process. I'm still very much, and the problem, what I realize is that it's such a wider challenge. And I think people are realizing it again because of the pandemic, are realizing now how deep rooted the problems go. It's not just with the union and the way that producers treat us, it's with the government and how and what happens in government, how that affects us as people, as society, so much more than anybody thinks. And how we need to be more active and more. It's not even you don't have to be active, but you have to be aware. And it's that awareness, having that. That's the only way that you have to be active, is actively aware of what's going on and how it affects you. So, and it has definitely affected my health and my mental health many, many times, where I feel hopeless and helpless, and it's because, you know, see that feeling of sort of just trying to do it alone. I'm not saying I'm a victim here, but you know, sometimes it's that fire energy in me that goes, come on guys, we can change this, you know. And the way that I do it is sometimes not necessarily very palatable to people.
Right.
However, who, you know, was Martin Luther King palatable? I'm not comparing myself to Martin Luther King by any means. I'm just saying, you know, people who people who make noise are the ones that make change. And so I have to just keep that in my heart and keep that in my soul and just go, you know what, the naysayers and the haters, you know, they are in their own process, and it's nothing to do with me. Their opinion of me is not my business.
Yeah.
And that goes for everything.
Yeah, that goes for life. Yeah, not just in acting, for sure. Yeah. I mean, we actors, I feel like we don't know how to say no in so many situations. And I think I've heard you in another interview say, you know, you choose what you want to do. And I feel like so many actors feel like they can't, you know, like I have to do this because I need money. I have to do this. And it's so hard. So how did you, you know, find that balance?
I found something else that I get as much pleasure from, and that's teaching yoga. And what I realized also, which also then helped my acting, was that it's not just teaching asana, like it's not teaching the poses. I don't care about the poses. What I teach is presence. And it's not even teaching, it's guiding. I guide people into being present. And it not only helps them, but it helps me. And it's an exchange of energy that I then realized how important that is for acting. You know, it's an exchange of energy. It's an exchange of listening. You know, when you're listening to your body and you're listening to yourself in, say, a yoga or a meditation practice, you become so much better at listening to other people. Again, don't get me wrong, I am not a guru. I am not good at this. I am not yet.
No, but it's your experience.
I'm just, you know, it's exactly. I'm just living the life. I'm just trying to live it every day, and that's what I enjoy so much now, where I just feel that I can help people, and that's also, it's about service. And as actors, you know, I want to serve people in some way. So like, even if you're doing something like Young Frankenstein, for instance, the way that I switched that in my head, because it could have been really like against my morals of feminism and whatever, but at the same time, we were making people laugh, and it wasn't at the expense of anyone. Mel Brooks is not, that's what I love about Mel Brooks, that he's funny, but not at the expense of especially women. Women are like, you know, powerful beings in all of his films. Yes, they are sex objects, but they're also, they use their sex and they use that power. Because he loves that. He loves that in women. So, you know, I also like found the good in it, which was, I'm showing that I'm a powerful, sexual, sensual woman who can use, you know, things to what I have to my advantage, and to help people, to help somebody else, you know, to serve the doctor. So it's about service. And when you're acting, if you're thinking about that service, then you stop thinking about yourself.
Yeah, that's so important. I feel like most actors, we start acting for selfish reasons, you know, like makes us feel good and the attention, but then you have at some point, to find that community, that service, that what you can give, because if not, it just consumes you. That's something, I found out this
and
past
you can tell who's doing it for themselves.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
You can always tell. You can see it in someone's performance if they're doing it for themselves. And it's usually because they're like if I was
Yeah.
they're listening while thinking about themselves, you know, like it's so, you know, and when you're aware of that, I mean, I can't watch a lot of stuff because I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, he's doing that. You know, that's actually not to do with the character at all. Like that's just to do with him.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It's a hard balance because, you know, unless you have a Giselle-like face that's completely like symmetrical,
yeah,
you know, sometimes you do feel a bit like you're, I don't know, wanting to
look a certain way. Yeah,
or
absolutely.
look a certain way, especially for people, you know, like especially like women like us. We're kind of in that bracket of pretty, attractive, you know, whatever. And actually, if you do put yourself in that bracket, in that pigeonhole, you stop yourself from being able to be something else, you know, or other people seeing you that way. You know, it's like the best thing I always reference Charlize Theron. The best thing she did was doing Monsters Ball or whatever, the monster, because it stopped people seeing her as the
pretty girl,
Chanel perfect, you know, supermodel, which was great because it and she was brave to do that, you know. But it's sad that we have to be brave to not be pretty and be
but I feel like it's even harder in front of a camera. I feel like in theater I didn't see myself thinking those things, but once you step, you know, in a camera and, you know, it's a close up, it's your mind just goes there. Like that's the first thing.
Yeah,
you gotta work to not think those things.
Exactly. And like another, I always now I reference as well to someone good to watch on that front is Elizabeth Moss in Handmaid's Tale.
Oh,
because she gives 0 F's about what she looks like, and it is devastatingly brilliant.
It's brilliant.
She is a chameleon. I mean, from going from one of like handmade to like demonic, like you can feel she's the so rage, raw. You know, and it's so raw, and there's not one moment in that series that I thought, oh, she's thinking about what she looks like ever. No. I didn't see it once, and I'm looking for it because I'm critical. I'm like, you know, when you do it, that's, you know, like I'm sure when chefs go to restaurants, they're like, oh, that jus doesn't quite taste very jus-y, you know, they, you know, we all do it. So it's also okay to be critical as long as you're not being like, you know, hating on someone. Like, of course,
yeah, but the camera catches everything, like the good and the bad. So yes, it's easy to see.
Yeah. Sure. And again, like going from those two different skills of projecting to the back of the stall compared to projecting to this camera. Yeah. You know, you don't, I just happen to be a person who projects my personality very largely in general in life. So, you know, as a default for me, that's, you know, big is me. So I am very aware of that, of not doing that on a camera, because, so again, that's another thing that you can do is that you have to be aware of how you are just naturally and how beautiful that is. And then what you need to do in order to bring that down for a character, or, you know, and if you're, as I say, if you're being true to that character, then you're going to do what they would do. If you're sort of more, you know, even if you are larger than life, you know, it might not come across that way on screen. It might come across as something that's like way too big.
Too much. Yeah, absolutely. So how was it for you, the transition?
You know, just be truthful.
How was it, like, what's the biggest tip for you from theater to TV? Because there's a lot of actors right now in theater that might want to, you know, start doing things in front of the camera because pandemic and all those things.
Yeah, I mean, because I was lucky enough to do Hollyoaks, which is the soap in the UK, which was sort of a baptism of fire in a way for TV, acting. And then Land Girls was my kind of thing that has just been on it's on Netflix now, and it was on the BBC just last week because they're rerunning it. And that was the kind of the transitional point where I felt that massive imposter syndrome. Like, what the hell am I doing? And then I watched it, and some of it I hated, and some of it I did think I was very much aware of myself, and I could see Summer in it, But also, generally, you get typecast now because there are so many actors.
Yeah.
So it's kind of easy to, like Nancy Morel was quite close to Summer Strallen. So, as far as like being a bit posh and, being sort of naughty.
Yeah.
So, I didn't have to, it wasn't that much of a massive stretch. But I recently did Death on the Nile, and I was a dancer in Death on the Nile. And what I did, a good tip that I realized about film, watching Armie Hammer and Gal Gadot and Emma Mackey and everything, is that they talk so quietly on set. It's like not even, like you can't even hear it. Yes, I was like, how are they even picking that up? But apparently they are. Yeah. So if in doubt, talk quietly.
Yeah.
even in club, we were in a club situation, interior. So that is something that I learned. Yeah. Constantly learn. That's also another tip I would give. I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly just going, oh, that's cool. Like, and looking for things, I mean, I was always taught that from a very early age of like, listen, even if you're not being spoken to, listen to the director or listen to whoever is, more experienced than you, because you will learn something, even if you think they're an idiot. Sometimes they will give you some sort of little nugget of advice or a tip. I also, another one I'm giving away all my tips here.
That's great.
Looking if you're opposite to somebody in a scene and the camera's on your right, you look into their down camera eye, which is that was a really good one. I thought. That's a good one. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah. So, and it makes such a difference. Like, you see actors on TV when they're not doing it, and you can see, or when they're switching eyes constantly. It's like, so distracting. Yeah.
Exactly.
So tell us a little bit more about. Another tip. Great.
I was saying about the tip that I mean, it wasn't even a tip, but it was something that Robert De Niro said about I think it was Raging Bull. Was he the one in Raging Bull? Yes.
Yes, he is in Raging
Bull. One of this film where it's a really long shot of him sat at a table, and he said that he just was trying to remember the contents of his fridge.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. Like, that's kind of the opposite of being in the character and like being in your own in a dialogue. But maybe he just felt like at that moment that guy he was psycho enough to just be like, what should I have for dinner tonight? And it just made him think, made him look like he was about to kill somebody.
But that's an actor that knows himself so much as to know that will work. So
correct.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So tell us more about the collective and the idea behind it and what's happening right now.
Well, yeah. So I basically came up with not came up with the idea. I mean, it was an idea that a lot of people were doing, which was, as far as like the initial idea was making a platform for people to give online classes, because obviously we were in lockdown. And then I was thinking, and then I thought about the classes that I would give, and what the classes that I want to give are yoga and meditation. So I was like, how do I want to create a space where everyone, society, can come and learn how to be creative, but also how to be mindful, and how to, and how those things together are so important, you know, for your mental health and your physical health. Because I also there was a video that a lot of like old casts of Cats, the musical, we did like a compilation of the Jellicle Ball. And that day when I was recording it, it made me feel so happy because of dancing.
Yeah.
And it brought me back to that place where I was like, oh my God, I really love dancing. I just hadn't danced for so long, because I was meant to be starting a job off Broadway, doing a dancing show, Irving Berlin, Cheek to Cheek. So and I just thought I would love to bring this feeling to other people, even people who aren't dancers, because one, it's so good for you. It's so good for your physical health. But also then you can then go over to the sanctuary space on the site and do a meditation, or vice versa, you know, or learn those things from people like me and other professionals in the industry who have already trained in those things, you know, trained in peak personal training, trained in HIIT, trained in physical fitness, trained in meditation, you know, things that clearly do have such a good impact on everyone's mental and physical health, you know, and coupled with learning from some of the most experienced professionals in the West End and on Broadway, and also being in the US, you know, and having friends who are in the US. We now know through Zoom and through the pandemic that we are able to connect in this way so easily, that I want to try and bring the US audience to the UK and vice versa. Because there is there is quite a divide, and people don't really know, you know, from my experience of being quite well known in the West End, I'm not as well known here. You know, if people like Love Never Dies, or they like Top Hat, or they like, you know, they've heard an original cast album, whatever, you know, but if you're not in an original cast, you might never be known. You know, and there are all these amazing creatives on both sides of the pond that never make that crossover, because they have to physically be there. But now we don't have to physically be there. We can, as I love Andrew Cuomo quote, which is, we are socially distant but spiritually connected.
More than ever.
That is, more than ever. And that's what he said, you know. So that's why I came up with the idea.
It's awesome.
And also to bring this sort of community back together. I feel Brené Brown talks about belonging and joy, and how they are coupled together the same way that shame and guilt, I think she says, there are two, you know, that they're coupled together, and vulnerability, and, you know, and I realized also that when you are in a theater, when you're in a musical or in a play, you become a family for that time that you're all together. You become a unit all working together. And I feel that has sort of dissipated a little bit in our community and our society in general, because of social media. So I thought, by bringing everyone together with social media, through social media and through online, we can start to build this, you know, a new way.
A new community.
Like, because now more, as we say, like we've got this chance to start afresh and to have a renaissance, and to stop the unhealthy habits that we've had of, you know, separating ourselves from each other. Let's all just work together. And so, you know, also it's with the collective, with the people who are in the collective, it's about them, you know, posting about other people's classes and helping to drive traffic to other people's classes and helping that community spirit. So, you know, I'm just hoping that's what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like such a light worker thing to do, you know, like so many people right now are like so negative, and it's like, well, this is a chance, to like bring out all the positive we can right now, and you're doing it in such a beautiful way with this collective. So how can people, join and take classes? How does it work exactly?
So you just go to www.thestrallencollective.com,
Okay.
and on there you have, book a class, and you can see all of the creators that we have, and then all of the sanctuary people that we have. And it's a work in progress. I'm doing it by myself with a couple of friends, and we're just sort of making it, trying to build it up nice and slowly. And the more people who join, and you can join the classes, and maybe we can do a little actors vow special. So if you follow us on social media as well at the Strallen Collective, and then on Twitter we're at the Strallen Co.
Okay.
And just follow all of the news. We've got an amazing workshop on the 26th of September with Jerry Mitchell, who was the choreographer of Hairspray, and Marisha Wallace, who's going to be playing Motormouth Mabel in the new London version of Hairspray, and then they're going to be on Britain's Got Talent that day as well.
Oh wow!
And then what else have we got? We've got an amazing Hamilton workshop coming up, where we're having a Q&A with lots of the original cast in London. Frozen, Jesus Christ Superstar. There's lots of different things. And for half term, we've got Matilda, we've got Lion King, we've got Aladdin, and they're all from people who are in the industry and who have been in these shows and were in these shows when they all shut down. So you're getting, people will be getting a straight from the horse's mouth what people do in the shows. And also there are Friday night fun series where we have 9 to 5, and you can just, get a drink and dress up, or like the Saturday Night Fever one where you don your flares, and it's more of like a fun thing to do. And we'd want to introduce it to everybody, and also give the audiences something as well. It's not just for people who are training in theatre. It's also for people who are missing these shows and missing this music, and and these people who are in them. So and I'll be doing some meditation classes soon, hopefully, and yoga classes. So yeah, we just want everyone to sign up, and you can join our mailing list.
Yeah, that's so cool.
I'm really excited.
Yeah, it sounds amazing. Okay, so where can people also find you on social media?
On social media, I'm at Summer Strallen on Instagram, and on Twitter, I'm Summer Strallen 1, because some cheeky person took Summer Strallen. And on Facebook, we've got a Facebook page, the Strallen Collective, and also I've got a Summer Strallen Facebook page. Please come and join me. Come say hi. I'll send you a little note back. Come along and have a look. It's there's something for everyone as well. We're trying to sort of go across the board from very young to as old as the man you feel, or the woman you feel.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today. You gave so much amazing advice.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, and keep going. This is an amazing podcast. I'm so pleased that you're doing it, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
How cool is Summer? I mean, I feel we vibed so much. Just the fact that she's also in all these spiritual things. There's a lot of actors right now and artists that are starting to realize that the body and the mind, is so connected to what we do. But I feel like there's still so many creatives that have to get into the bandwagon, and it would really benefit their creativity and your life. You yourself as an actor, you are your own instrument. So if you are not working on your mind, your wellness, your spirit, your soul, your emotions, all that, then there might be something lacking in your art. And Summer realized, and I realized, there was that block, that thing that didn't let us go further. And starting this, if you don't want to call it spiritual journey, this wellness journey, this journey of self-discovery, can do so many wonderful things for you. So really go check out the Strallen Collective. I'm very excited to take classes there. and all the amazing teachers they have and everything she's doing. I think it's such an incredible project and such an opportunity right now that we are in a pandemic. So thank you again, Summer, for sharing this with us and taking the time to share your story. And before we end the episode today, I wanted to bring the play of the week. And this week is kind of a classic, and probably most of you have heard about it, but maybe not all of you have read it. So I need to bring it because it's one of my favorite plays. And when I read it, I really said to myself, I need to be in this and play this role. And it's kind of a dream role to me. So the play is Look Back in Anger by John Osborne, and it's such a beautifully written play. It's very realistic. It's kind of a slice of life play in some parts, and it really goes into character development, very emotional, very into like the human psyche and human relationships. That's what most of the play is about. It's about romantic relationships, but also father-daughter relationships. There's a lot into it. So what I love about it, and that's why I wanted to bring it here, is there's many beautiful scenes for scene study, many beautiful monologues, both for men and women. And it's a play with 4 main characters, 2 males, 2 females, and there's another character that also comes up, but it's not a main one. The whole play happens in one set, so it's also an amazing play if you're looking for something to direct. If you're looking for, a few scenes to direct, I don't know if you do that in your school, or if you want to do that, for a showcase or something, this is a great play for that. It's really deep at some points. It also has comedy parts. So if you haven't read it, go check it out. Look Back in Anger by John Osborne. So this will be all for this week. I wanted to thank you guys for these past weeks, which have been amazing. Your support through Instagram, your DMs, your participation, you guys sending me things, liking the post, sharing the post. It just means so much to me. And for the podcast and for the community, and for things that if the information that I share helps you, it can also help another actor, another artist. And remember that if you haven't subscribed to iTunes, that's also very helpful for the podcast. So subscribe and leave a review, or just put 5 stars, and that's very helpful too, and I'll be grateful to you forever. And yeah, thank you. This is just amazing, and it's getting so exciting how this community is building every single day. And if you don't do so yet, you can follow the Actors Vow on social media like Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And I will see you next Wednesday.